and there are a lot of people returning and setting up businesses here. And if our connectivity was improved, people could commute to those places. Yes, and quite a few people are coming back to live in this part of the world for maybe 3 or 4 days a week, working from home using the digital broadband facilities that we've got here. So it's not all lost to Cornwall, I think, the training. I think we are benefiting from it. But it will take time.
And so even if they go away and come back in their 40s when they're at the height of their sort of expertise and so on, that's okay. That's good for us.
Yes, but I mean, my own son. I mean, he lives he lives just over the border in Devon, but he actually works north of London, but he commutes. We wish the commute was better, but he's spending his money down here, and I think. And also, we've got to make sure that if we want to keep our skills here, we have to pay the right wages to keep them here.
And that's a very big Claire.
I just wanted to say, I'm on the board for Young Enterprise, and obviously it's not just about employability skills, but it's actually about enterprise skills as well. We've got Young Enterprise teams this year who take part and set up a company for a year. We have a trade fair on Lemon Key last Saturday.
Can people at the back hear this? Sorry, it's an interesting point, so I just want to make sure we're all...
is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, Claire Harris. I'm on the board for Young Enterprise, and I'm just amazed at the calibre of these young students at the age of 15, 16 who set up a business for a year. We had a trade fair on Lemon Key last Saturday, and their selling skills, their confidence was just amazing. And I just think it's not just about employability skills, it's actually about enterprise as well. And another colleague on the board, Grant, he was one of the winning team from Young Enterprise that went through to national finals and then European 6 years ago. He's now working in Tremo Innovation Centre, Pixel Rain, huge successful company.
So should we be using people like Grant and some of these other winners to inspire their peer group?
Yeah. I think we should. And this year we've got so many local businesses supporting as mentors within the schools, and we're always looking for more. And I just think it's looking at enterprise as well as employability.
Okay. Another gentleman back there.
I might be able to bellow out.
Yeah.
Or we could with these things. Hello. As the lady was just saying now, I'm actually one of those people that have been through the enterprise startups and whatnot. I think, going back to employment briefly, it's not so much just the ability to take on academic subjects and excel at them and have great grades. I've just come out of university and I started my business in August. It's kind of the willingness to learn and then having people, rather than telling you what to do, show you how to go about it, seek these opportunities for yourself. The stand at Lemon Key last week, massively impressed that initiative was taken. For me, it's more the experience that counts. I've had little in my short-term career, and I think that giving more people more experience rather than just throwing them out into the big world, if you like, and then hoping that they swim, we need to present more opportunities to have that experience.
So is that the responsibility of the college system, or should that be led by employers, or do they need to get into a room together and...
I think, that. They need to work together on this, because you could pester big employers all you like, but sometimes it's just not
okay.
the way forward.
And was your startup in an area which is considered sort of high growth in Cornwall? Or?
We're in Truro, if that counts.
Right, sorry, I'm in a field. Sector.
Yeah, definitely. We're in the design sector, or the creative sector, if you like. So, in terms of the entirety of the UK economy, it's pretty big right now. But I didn't just join it for the money. It's a labour of love for me. But like I said, it really helps to have the experience. I had no business training before I started, and all of the organisations like Unlocking Potential and Outside Cornwall, Get Set for Growth, things like that. If it wasn't for them, I definitely wouldn't be in this room right now.
Okay, so the landscape is pretty supportive here. That's good to hear. Okay.
If I just make one comment, lady mentioned about middle-aged disadvantaged people. You also mentioned about your daughter couldn't get to places. That isn't a problem of education. That's a problem. There's very lacking industry in Cornwall. Look at it. We're a big company. We've got 350 people. That's the problem. And I employ lots of people. Average age is 47. I guarantee there's nobody between 45 and 60 works for us, because it was the gap, no apprenticeships, the Thatcher gap we call it, and there is a disadvantaged generation there. And that's not education's fault, that's history.
Okay, interesting. That's interesting. So I think there's a picture emerging that we are getting it better, certainly than the Thatcher era. Then in Cornwall, I do hope that between the colleges and apprenticeships, we're making some headway. I'm going to move on. Next question is from Mark Rudge. Mark here. I thought somebody said they'd seen him earlier, but he must have drunk the wine and scooted off. Right. With so many millions of pounds worth of investment from the EU over the past few years in Cornwall, why are we still the worst performing economy in the UK according to the latest statistics? Peter.
We've had 2 rounds of EU money. I'm always politically correct, but first one we totally wasted. We built 1,000 Thinker farm. It's good support.
I think we'll have a different view on that in a moment.
Lots of minor projects that didn't do anything, and it was sort of butter spread across the economy. There was no great lasting benefit. The second one, we've done 2 or 3 really good things in Cornwall. University, first time we've got, instead of exporting all of our talent, we can actually import some now. And broadband has been a massive driver to a lot of the smaller SME businesses, the creative businesses, and that's been pretty key, and it's been a big driver in our specialism and sectors we're looking going forward. And I think with the third 593 million euros, we didn't make sure we do some more big projects. Be remiss of me not to mention the dredging, but that's a key thing. We've got to do big projects that will give generations future wealth. And what's the big problem with EU funding is, one, unless you really need the funding, you don't get it, and the bureaucracy and the red tape to go through it to get it is a nightmare for most industries. And that's why we tend to give half of it back, and it's a nightmare of forms to get the money that Cornwall needs to go in the right places.
Interesting. Okay. Andrew, does the city feel the same? Worst performing economy in the UK? I'm not sure, but
That's not an accusation, is it, Kim?
that's the that's the question. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Because I think it's 4 programmes and counting. And a cynic would say the first 3 didn't work, but perhaps that's a little bit too simple, because some of the big projects have worked. But if I could just speak perhaps a little bit on the agri-food sector. Yes, of course, there are some very big players in that sector, very complex supply chains, but there are also thousands of small and medium and larger farms. And a lot of these individual businesses have benefited from Objective 5B and LEADER before that, and Objective 1, and of course the Convergence Programme. So it's quite interesting that it's easier to pick out perhaps the failures, because, especially the big ones, because they're pretty obvious. But if we went around...
Can you give an example?
Well, it's so obvious, I don't think I need to, but it's much more complex and less interesting, perhaps, to identify the many hundred, many thousand of sort of small incubated businesses which have started and grown and are prospering. So I think we need to take a balanced view on this.
Okay. Thelma, you're itching to say something.
Yes, I am. Has been very, very involved with Objective 1. Peter, I do have to disagree just a little. You said the CUC, that was put in place in Objective 1. And coming from Falmouth, we wouldn't, but we did the dualling of the railway line into Falmouth, from Truro. The airport, the airport is so important to the economy of Cornwall. Because of Objective 1, we got the A30. We wouldn't have got that if we hadn't had Objective 1 status. Act Now, which was brilliant and got into loads of businesses. The innovation centres were actually planned in Objective 1 and delivered in Convergence. Tremendous amount of investment that we can still see and has changed the landscape of Cornwall. We mustn't forget what we looked like before.
Okay. Oliver, are there different criteria from which we should be judging being the worst performer or not in the 21st century?
I don't want to answer that one. I want to respond to Peter, because Peter missed out the round of European funding that came before Objective 1, which was called Objective 5B. I would just like to point out to Peter that Objective 5B was predicated on investment in small business and business partnerships across Cornwall. At the point at which we got Objective 5B, our per capita GDP in Cornwall was 69% of the European average. At the end of the 5B period, it was 74% of the European average. The reason we got Objective 1 funding was because it wasn't 75%. So we improved by 5% during that period. Now, I can't tell you whether that improvement was due to Objective 5B funding or not. I simply don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't suppose anybody knows the answer. But I have to say, I think that in a land of small businesses, self-employed businesses, many people living on the edge of poverty, that the investment in those key skills for those people, easily accessible loan funding, new training, help for export for small businesses, that was what came in under Objective 5B, and I think that was a real success.
Okay, good. Okay, so, right, Chris? Yeah. Good.
One quick question that I'd like to, or a request to the county. I'd love to have the university at Tremoe have one name, because I think it confuses people. I've rung them up before and I've said, is this university campus? And I've had someone get really irate on the phone with me because they said, no, this is the University of Exeter. No, it's not. It's Cornwall University, and I think that would actually do us a lot of good. And if the European money has come to Cornwall, that should be one. I also think that it's a slow burn. A lot of this stuff is. It's about building a confidence and an ability to get going. And so that when good seeds come along, they hit fertile ground in many ways. And there's an awful lot of people in this room who've helped contribute to that, to make it a more fertile ground. But maybe we also need to look slightly broader. And I'll give a little example of a guy from California who has just become surfing's first billionaire. Now, he invented the GoPro camera. He didn't make his billion through the surf world, but he did it because he invented something that worked in the surf. Now, sometimes in this county, when you say surfing to people, they just think, oh, it's some drop-out hippie thing over there, and there's no money in it. And that could apply across a whole load of things. We don't know where that little gem is going to come from. And, you know, the billions have been made through the sale to all kinds of things, from the Rolling Stones to every single action sport going. But it was a little gem that he was able to go and plant that seed and get support. And that, I think, is hopefully the situation that we're at right now. And hopefully there's going to be a whole load of seeds coming out of our education systems and from the kind of entrepreneurial spirit and the get up and go and that kind of work ethic as well.
So the point being
to make
that
it deliver.
We need in Cornwall's circumstances and lots of small businesses that will emerge if we all concentrate on the right areas.
Yeah.
A billionaire, whether that's from the surf industry or from the digital
whatever.
creative.
And we have, you know, Martin's here. We have people who understand, you know, what the fundamental principles of running a business are. And, you know, can you manufacture? Can you get it done? How many times do you have to pick it up? What's the tooling? So all those little questions for people like, you know, young enterprise and stuff. Those are, you know, I did, in a little tiny barn, I made 2,000 bangles out of old surfboard materials and I lost £4,000 because nobody ever told me that by the time I'd picked each one of those bangles up 10 times, it had cost me more than I was ever going to make off it. But I now know that there are people in Cornwall who would tell me that and open up those things. So you learn by your mistakes, and hopefully we've got enough people who've learned to allow us to go forwards.
We're getting there. Charlie, from Combined Universities Cornwall, just before we move on to the next question, do you want to pick up on why we've got 3 universities on one campus?
It's our Penryn campus rather than Tremoe.
Right, okay.
See, same thing. What is it called?
It's the Penryn campus, which is jointly shared by the University of Exeter and Falmouth University, one of the 5 partners of the Combined Universities in Cornwall.
And we can never ever enter University Challenge on that basis because Paxman will never be able to say.
Not forgetting the Innovation Centre on the same site run by Plymouth University.